All right, hello everyone. Let's continue. Last night we were cut off because we lost power to the internet. So let's pick it up where we were cut off.
Yeah, 自己算一算，考虑一下。不要所修的没有所丢的多。
You yourself should calculate, think about it. But do not be like what's cultivated is not as much as what's lost.
也就是所得到的没有所失去的多。哎呀，特别注意，特别来自己算一算。
This means the gains are not as great as the losses. Need to pay special attention to this, to specifically calculate it out yourself.
在今天，我再给各位介绍一位善知识。这位善知识叫什么名字呢？
Today, I will introduce you one more good-knowing advisor. What's the name of this good-knowing advisor?
So in closing, Master YongHua gave us a conclusion. He says, when you practice, pay attention to the big picture, meaning that you look at the good karmas you create versus the bad karmas you create. And make sure that you're creating more good karmas than bad karmas. Because if you create more bad karmas and good karmas, then you regress. He didn't specifically say that, but that's what's going to happen. Quite often, people just focus on cultivation. They're creating good karmas, the so-called cultivators. But they fail to pay attention to the fact that are creating negative karmas, bad karmas in the process of cultivation. Then the cultivation will not yield good results for them. That's what happens. And this is something so fundamental, and yet people who are serious about cultivation forget. Okay? For example, you go to a chanted like our place, and you see there aren't many people because of the pandemic and so forth, and many of my disciples are so swamped. They work. This is a time where they catch up and they work, and work keeps on piling up. So you don't see that many people, and you cultivate and you practice, you meditate, and pretty soon you get bored. So you start talking to people, you start answering your cell phone, and you start snoring and so forth. What you're doing is that you are creating offenses. What kind of offenses? You're obstructing. You are distracting others, people who cultivate. That's negative karmas. Okay? And I don't know what you do with your practice yourself, but the idea here the Master YongHua is trying to tell us is I would phrase it slightly differently, okay, and because it's very, very important. He says about in slide 49, calculate it out. There's no way for you to calculate it out, okay? So is it not a good translation? Swan here is to be is calculate, but what he means by that is right in 48. What he means is that you have to keep track of it, not necessarily calculate it, because you don't know how to calculate. No one really knows how to calculate. Does it make sense? What he said on slide 48, the slide before, is that you think about it. Make sure that what you accrue, when you in your cultivation, your good karmas you're creating, will be more than the bad karmas you're creating. That's the point. That's what he meant by swan yi swan. Is actually keep track of it, okay? To physically keep track of it. And the Chinese way of saying swan yi swan, basically in our context, in our language, it means that you need to keep track of it. You need to be aware of it. You cannot ignore it. Okay? This is so fundamental in cultivation. In fact, if I were to teach you, okay, in this context, I would tell you that that the first thing you do is not worry about good karmas you're creating. The first thing you do to avoid creating offenses. That's what cultivation is about. You don't need to worry about calculating, you don't need about keeping track. My formula is very simple. Avoid creating offenses. Avoid afflicting others. Especially during a chanqi, avoid afflicting others. In particular, I have to remind you, I'd like to remind you, okay, especially you, my left form disciples. You don't have the right to scold my disciples. You don't have the right to yell at them. You don't have the right to give them a hard time. That's creating offenses. That's very serious offenses. They're not your disciples. They are my disciples. If I decide to scold them, it's because I have a reason. You are stupid. You don't know how to train. Who are you to scold them? Who are you to afflict them? Who are you to yell at them? Who are you to order them around? When I first started at Lu Mountain Temple 15 years ago, for years, people would order me around. I didn't order people around. Did you know that? Everyone ordered me around. They tell me what to do. They wanted me to do this, they wanted me to do that. Because I knew. So everyone knew more than I did. Okay? I never said anything. I said, yes, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, I will do it. Okay? Even I have to take people's orders. Who are you to yell at people and tell people what to do? Cut it out. Remember, people come to our temple is because of me, because of the Dharma, not because of you. Don't yell at them, okay? That's you creating offenses. Don't ask things from them, because you're also creating offenses. Because in our Dharma, I'd rather die than ask for anything. That's my master's teaching. He would starve to death and yet not lift a finger to do anything about it. He goes to the train station, no money to buy a ticket. Never asked anyone, just sat down for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. Eventually, people recognize him and say, hey, you've been here for quite a while. What's going on? Are you on strike? He was trying to send a message? No, I said, I'm trying to go somewhere. And what are you waiting for? I said, I'm waiting for the chance to go. Our is very subtle. I know I'm telling you that to avoid yelling at people and to avoid scolding people because you don't know. Just because I try to remind you, when I scold people, it's for a reason. When I yell at people, it's for a reason. When I get angry, it's because I can't control myself. My Buddha nature cannot control itself. Smart Alex. Okay? But you're better than me. Your Buddha nature is pure. You don't have to commit offenses the way I do. Don't be stupid. Okay? So when you cultivate, the first thing you do is to avoid creating offenses. Don't push people away. They're here to practice the Dharma. You don't have the right to afflict them so that they run away. It's my job to afflict them so that they run away, not yours. Instead, you should encourage them. Okay? And the one thing to discourage from coming is to ask for things from them. Then, you know what happens when you ask for things from lay people? Then we're the same just as any other temple. Remember there's a comment yesterday of some IKEA person? Who says, I go to the to other places, other way places, other places, and I don't feel comfortable. Okay, yeah. It's because the people are still greedy. They want things. Okay. We, by not asking for things from others, it's not about the image. It's a part of cultivation. You make do. If you cannot ask for things from others, naturally you have to make do. And that's what cultivation is about. Okay? Focus on that. And that's our Weiyang style, is we avoid creating offenses and we avoid fighting, avoid all those creating offenses. Look at the 6 principles we're talking about. Okay, we don't fight, we don't harm people. No matter how afflicted we are, no matter how wrong they are, we don't fight them, we don't harm them. We're not greedy, meaning don't ask. If they give it to you, look at that person first. Okay? Oh, and then what? I forgot. Okay? We don't ask. We're not greedy. We don't ask for things. We don't seek things. Okay? Those are the don't. That's the basis of our practice. It's too bad that at the time when Master YongHua taught these people during the first 100 days chant he had, these people were foreigners. I mean, they are natives, aborigines. Natives, they're local people. So for him to say, you don't, greedy, seeking, they wouldn't be able to understand. So he had to say, keep track of the plus and minuses and so forth. But I spell it out for you, okay? The 6 principles are about avoiding creating offenses. Think about it. Never mind about the good things. Never mind about creating good karmas. Learn to avoid creating bad karmas first as your foundation. Okay? Questions? Comments? Okay, let's move on then. So that's it. That's a very important message. And yes, red, pink.
Master, on slide 47, he was talking about attachments also. I was wondering, it seemed like there is maybe idea that like getting rid of attachments more than gaining something from your chun practice. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Okay, so the prior slide 47, he says, I've been practicing here for 2 weeks now. And how many more attachments do I still have in my mind? What are those attachments? Unfortunately, again, we are not the same kind of audience he had back then. So this is not quite applicable to us, and I don't think it's good to go into it. So that's why I ignored it, because when you talk about attachments, it's you go into a gray zone, and unless you do it properly, you end up having the effect that we'd have to people like you who are new, and say, what attachment? What are you talking about? So that's why, to me, it's not necessary. You need to receive simple instructions, not more concepts that are nebulous and they are vague, they're too abstract. Okay? Are you listening, old monk? Speaking Dharma is about giving clear instructions in our time. Okay? I avoid, when you look at my teaching the last 15 years, how often do I use the word attachments? Because I don't like that word. The Chinese love to use that word, especially Chinese Dharma masters. Because when you say, you still have so many attachments, you know why? What happens to me? I feel so inferior. I have attachment and you don't. Therefore, you talk about me having so many attachments. While you are full of attachment yourself, you're trying to get my money. Okay? You're trying to get me to bring you to a nice restaurant. You're trying to get me to adore you, to respect you. Speaking of attachments, my attachment is so much lighter than yours. Okay? He asked for my opinion. So that's why I avoid talking about attachments. only because, just like them, I have so many attachments. It's a matter of self-defense. Okay? You can't defend yourself because you still have attachments. So, and so far, the last 15 years, we didn't have to talk to you about attachments, and it still works. Because I feel that the attachments is a too Chinese concept. It's designed, this kind of talk is designed for much higher level people. Okay? And it's not how you handle this. To say it, we have too many attachments, is counterproductive. It causes confusions in people's minds. That's why I don't like to use this concept. Okay? Why not? Because exactly what happened. His question says, when he reads about, hears about this thing here, he says, what attachment? So it made him think, which is counter to the spirit of teaching Chan. Teaching Chan is to help reduce your thinking, not increase your thinking. Okay? That's our style. There's a difference between our Weiyang style and Chinese style. Chinese style, they use big words. Okay? And in particular, the word attachment is really foreign to the Westerners. What are you talking about? What's wrong with liking pizza? Huh? What's wrong with liking getting rich? What's wrong with liking to be successful? What kind of nonsense are you talking about? You know, you claim you don't like money, but look around you. I see money everywhere. You are not fooling me. Someone says, your temple has 10 black cars parked in the parking lot. I came first to the temple, I saw 10 Cadillacs, all black, like a fleet, parked in your parking lot. And you're trying to tell me you're poor? I said, they're not mine, they belong to the bank. Aha, so you bought them? No. You see, it's for Westerners, it doesn't help. The concept of attachment doesn't help. I find that it's too confusing. It confused me. It bothered me. I said, so I have so many attachments. Lofty monk. I see you trying to impress me. Yes, Green.
Even worse, Master, we could perceive that you want some of our attachments, which we don't want to give to you, conceptually. But I wanted to say, I'll pause there for that concept. Okay.
That's me.
Once we recognize we have them, we might want them even more. But I wanted to say, Master, with all humility, thank you for the profound instruction to cross my legs. And even now, having become your disciple and been coming to Lu Mountain and Wei Mountain Temple for 7+ years, I still don't recognize the profoundness of it. But to share an experience would be, over the years, I haven't thought about attachments, I've thought about simply crossing my legs. Even when the pain's too much and I can't cross my legs, I still think about, you should try crossing your legs. And that simple instruction is all I've really had to focus on. And it doesn't occur to me until maybe tonight's lecture, tonight's Dharma talk, that just how profound that instruction, as simple as it is, really is for me. Thank you, Master.
Very good. You see, that's you have to thank the Chinese for that. We simply copied the Chinese because I found that to be such a profound teaching. and it bothered me that his disciples, my master's disciples, stopped teaching that, stopped promoting that, because people complain it's too difficult, and they quit. Okay, and so we started by figuring out how to not get you to quit, and get you to try doing something that's difficult that you don't like. So that's the challenge for us to try to help Westerners, people who are not Chinese and Asians. So we developed that, and so I lucked out in a sense. I looked around and said, well, what I learned, what really helped me too when I first started was this full lotus. Okay, and I look at my past experience, my own personal experience, and a lot of my students and their experiences. In fact, when you struggle in sitting full lotus, okay, and you persevere, there's something magical happens. If you keep on persevering, like last night, the IKEA person, he keeps on fighting and fighting and fighting, okay? In the end, I was so grossed out, but that's that's besides the point. In the end, I looked at him and said, wow, you made such a fool yourself. No, that's besides that. That's why he's not here anymore. Sayonara. I noticed something that's interesting, and this is what I observed the last 15 years. Every time you sit there and you try and you struggle so much, what happened in that to him is that when he struggled so much, he was he was agonizing over his posture. His head cleared up. I don't know he noticed that. Is he online? Okay. I'm asking you. Did you notice towards the end, around 8 o'clock and so forth, the head cleared up. I looked at that's what I've been observing every single time when people are willing to fight it and make a fool of themselves in front of me. I noticed the head's cleared up. And do we need to talk about attachments? The head cleared up because they have fewer attachments. So what's the point talking about attachments? Whatever they are, they're gone. What's the point talking about them? So yes, I'm grateful that you brought up that point. Is the full lotus clears your head and reduces attachments naturally. So all we have to do is to encourage you and get you to keep trying and fighting and failing, make a fool of yourself and grossing us out. But it helps you get rid of attachments naturally. And you feel calmer, you feel more peaceful. It shows. Okay? So that's why it's not, that's why we avoid, this concept of attachments until a much higher level where now at higher levels, when we teach them, we need to talk about attachments, and then we train them to recognize attachments in the people they're training. So that instead of talking to them about attachment and telling them that, you're so and get them offended, you find a way to get them to do something to undo those attachments naturally without having to talk about it, without having to make them look bad. Well, I guess nothing is worse than grossing yourself. Okay? All right? So that's why. Don't worry about it. Attachments are eventually, you keep at it and you realize, oh my God, I'm not as greedy for flavors anymore like before. I'm not as hungry, desiring for more sleep than before. Okay? I'm more patient than before. All those are the results of your letting go of attachments, whatever they are. It happens naturally. It's not something you need to understand. That's why we don't need to you to be very smart. Smart people understand too much more than they need to understand. Okay? All right. Anything else? Okay, let's continue then.
他叫维奇南，是个印度人。他的祖父是外道，修这个外道法的。
His name was Wei Qinan. He was an Indian. His grandfather was an externalist, practiced this external Dharma.
Okay, and again, I apologize. Let me backtrack just a little bit to remind you that what the comment was made earlier about the full lotus thing, posture. You develop that skill. You develop that knowledge when you fight, or you learn to be able to sit in full lotus. It's such a vital skill for your welfare, for your well-being, both physical and mental. If you can do that, okay, whenever you feel you're afflicted, whenever you feel that you're tired, whenever you feel you're so vexed, okay, you cross your legs, and naturally you will restore your balance without having to understand anything. Just do it. It naturally will happen. Okay? It's such a fantastic skill that I wish we could teach our children and just tell them, get in full lotus, and and remind them, when they throw a tantrum, get in full lotus. Okay? All right, continue, please.
他父亲也是个修外道法的，修什么外道呢？修这个是火外道。
His father also practiced this external Dharma. What external practice? He practiced the external practice of worshipping the fire.
专门就恭敬这火，他认为火这是最高无上，所以家里边总点着一种火把。
Specifically, he respected this fire. He believed the fire is most supreme. So, at home, they always light up a torch.
他 他对这火就好像恭敬佛那么恭敬的火。
He respected the fire the same way as we respect the Buddha. He respected this fire.
有一天呢，就来了一个沙门。这个沙门呢，是个修行小乘法的沙门。精通咒术，
One day, a Sramana came. This Sramana practiced the Hinayana Dhamra and specialized in mantras.
会念很多咒，这个咒念得非常的灵。这一天走路天就黑了。
He can chant many mantras. His mantra chanting was very effective. One day, he was walking, and it became dark.
咱们就到这个维奇南他的家里是想在他这儿住一宿，就和他父亲呢他们讲，借许一宿。
He arrived at Wei Qinan's home and wanted to stay overnight. He told the father he wanted to stay over for one night.
可是他们家里是修外道法的，看见这个沙门很不顺眼，这看不惯，这是干什么的？
But his family practiced the external Dharma. It was very unpleasant for them to see this Sramana. They frowned upon him. What was his profession?
看不惯呢。那么说你在我们这儿住可以，但是我们房子里边不能给你住，你要在门外边住。
They frowned upon him and said, "You can stay here, but you can't stay inside. You have to stay outside."
You see, this Sramana practiced mantras, and so he asked for things. Okay, we practice, but make sure to remember that we don't ask for things. We don't drop hints. We don't make allusions. Okay? Please remember that. That's the difference. And someday you understand why it's so important. I hope. Go on. You'll even get people to like you. Oh, yeah. Yes. Don't want people to be impressed by you. God, it's disgusting. Yes, go on.
因为他很多的猜忌，因为他自己修外道的，那么
Because he had lots of suspicions, because he himself practiced the external way.
他就怕人家来破坏他这个道，他这个一种外道法。 ， 他破坏外道法。
He was afraid others would come to destroy his way, his external Dharma.
So
he
what
wa-
is this? Go on. I cannot tell when she's finished.
He was afraid that he would destroy the external Dharma.
What is this? He's afraid. Afraid of what? He's seeking to preserve his Dharma. Isn't that seeking? You want to burn my temple? When I'm afraid you're going to burn my temple, am I seeking to preserve my temple? Huh? YouTube question.
LTD asks, Master, if we don't ask for things, is it wrong to pray and ask Buddhas and Bodhisattvas for things?
Cross your legs. Then you ask less. I gave you the answer already. You keep on asking. Okay, what about the rest of you? Is it okay to ask to pray to the Buddha, pray to God, pray to the Buddha, the Bodhisattvas for things? Is it? Yes? Isn't that seeking? You pray to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, aren't you seeking? Aren't you greedy? Huh? Yes, of course you're greedy. But for who? When you pray, it's for what purpose? Of course we pray. In our ceremonies, we pray Namo Shucha Moni Fo, Namo Shakmuni Buddha. We pray, aren't we? My point here is when you pray, if it's for your own purposes, then try to do that as sparingly as possible, because as part of your practice is to learn to pray. Yes? Because, yes, when you pray for yourself, you will get responses. You understand how to get responses. We all have to learn how to do that. Yes? Otherwise, what's the point in praying to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas? Let's be real. Okay? Besides, you cannot convince me you're not greedy at all. Okay? Maybe except for the pure person back there. She has no greed whatsoever. But, so it's perfectly okay in our evolution to pray for this, for that, pray for a job, pray for success and so forth. And you don't need to convince to fool me and say, I pray that we get the super lotto, when I get the lotto, and if I win, I give you a chunk of money, master. I said, don't bother. Because if you associate my name with any kind of lotto, you're not going to get anything, not even $2. Yes, Orange.
Mô Phật bạch thầy, cái cầu nguyện đó thì con cũng là nghe cũng rất là nhiều mà mình không có nên cầu nguyện. Bây giờ mình vô tới nhà Phật rồi, phải mình tìm một người thiện trí thức để mình học thêm thầy cho nó thông minh sáng suốt một chút xíu. Chứ ngày xưa thì tụi con cũng thích cầu nguyện lắm thầy. Bị người ta nói nó, trời ơi, mình tu mà cầu nguyện sao mà dở quá vậy. Mình nghe tiếng đó thì mình cũng học hoài tới giờ chưa biết. Thì bữa nay nói là cầu nguyện thì mình con mới hiểu. Bây giờ mình không có cần cầu hiểu. cầu nguyện nữa, mình phải tìm một người thiện tri thức để cho phân tỏ cho mình càng ngày càng đi sâu một chút, để cho con có trí huệ, thông minh một chút xíu. Mô Phật.
When talking about praying, I have been hearing a lot that I should not pray because now we enter the Buddha's house, we should look for a good knowing advisor so that we can learn. Every day we can open up our wisdom and be better. So in the past, I pray and then people criticize like, how come you are not good at all? So now I understand that I should not pray and then I should learn from a good knowing advisor so that each day I can open up my wisdom and understand more.
I don't want to sound defensive, but I do pray for myself more often than I should. And my excuse is that, listen, we know, for example, Guanyin Bodhisattva is a Bodhisattva of great compassion, meaning that when you're in trouble, you pray to her, she'll come for help, okay? And I heard of many people, my late father, my Dharma brother, who prayed to Guanyin and they got responses. And so I tried, I got no responses. So clearly, they're doing something right, and I wasn't. So I kept praying. I still haven't figured out why not yet. But the point here is that it's not as black and white as you think. Okay, I feel that I will be the last person to sit here and pretend to you I don't pray. Okay. That doesn't sound good, does it? But the point here is that it's okay to pray, because when we get started, we pray, and because we have some needs that are very urgent. And it's normal for human, it's in our nature to pray and ask for help. That's normal, okay? But as you learn more, as she said, eventually you see that you don't need to pray as often anymore, because those people who claim to you that every time they pray and Guanyin gives them a response is not true. I found out it's not true. Okay, the response rate is about a lot lower than mine, because they ask so often. I'm at the bus stop. What happened to the bus? Guanyin, please help. Send the bus over here. It's how ridiculous some of these monks are. They pray and ask for help all the time. And you cannot convince me. I don't believe they get responses all the time. Okay? So overall, you see that the efficacy of praying too often is not that high naturally. Okay? And that's why you become more selective. Okay? And you learn, actually in that process, you learn why there are responses and why there's no responses. So that's, once you understand that, then naturally you will pray less. And if you pray, then you pray for others, not for yourself. Because you cannot possibly pray for others and get responses without knowing how to pray. You need to drill. You go to the drill. You need to go to the exercise and develop the praying skills. Okay? So that's what she needs to go next. It's normal for you to evolve into feeling less of a need to pray. That's natural in her evolution. But eventually, I've seen examples of people who pray for others. Okay? That's what we're supposed to do. Develop the skills to help others. And at times we can't help ourselves. It's perfectly okay to pray for some, like the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas to help them. Okay? Yes, Green.
So then, Master, would it be okay for me to, or would it not be greedy for me to pray to the Buddha to help the retail traders and expose the clear market manipulation of the hedge funds so that GameStop's short squeeze can go to the moon? Stock, because regardless of whether my wife would let me buy it or not, I don't own it. So then I would be just paying for the retail traders to get big success.
Now you're doing vigilante work on the stock market. I remember Death Wish series where Charles Bronson goes around and kills all the bad guys. That's vigilante work. Okay. Now what you're saying is instead of killing people, you are destroying the short traders and so forth. It's still vigilante work to me. Don't mess with people. Let them do whatever they do to each other. It's none of our business. Okay, that's what happens to the people who develop special understanding, special insights, and what they do, they start looking outside. Okay. Look at the short traders, look at Mr. T, look at the Republicans, look at Democrats. None of your business. It's not your business. Okay? Should look inside. Look at yourself. Okay? Why am I so angry? Okay? Why am I so greedy? It's much more useful. Why can't I sit longer? Okay? If you do look inside, and that will help you improve as a person. When you look outside, you help the financial market, you help the COVID thing there. It's not going to help you improve as a person at all. Okay? The exception is that the next few days, we do this. It's a collective effort for me to demonstrate to you that there's a purpose for all this, is that we have an aspiration. Okay? Not unlike this externalist in the story here, where he worships the fires and he has these mantras in order to develop special skills to impress people and get what they want. We're developing all these skills in order to help others when we have a chance to help others, when others cannot help. Okay? We always are the last resort. We don't, we don't want to take away the jobs from others. Okay? Because it's none of our business. Let's worry about cleansing ourselves. Let's worry about becoming better, develop more skills, so that we can open our real wisdom and help when we're supposed to help. To fool around with financial market, to me, is not advisable. To fool around with politics is not advisable. Okay, so it's not good use of our time. All right, continue, please.
He 叫这个沙门呢，在门外边住下。这个沙门呢，就用起神通来，他念上咒了。念什么咒呢？就念灭火咒。
Then he told this Sramana to stay outside of the entrance. Then the Sramana used his spiritual penetration and chanted a mantra. What mantra? He chanted the extinguishing fire mantra. Once he chanted this mantra, the fire offered at his house was extinguished.
YouTube has a question.
Zentian asks, when we receive responses or helps from the Bodhisattva, do we lose blessing?
You better believe it. You're making a withdrawal. Of course. You're using your blessings capital. Okay? Now, so this, you see, it's funny how, I don't know, I haven't read the story yet, and so I don't know where it's going. But immediately, this is so typical of the people when they cultivate. Don't make this happen to you. Let this happen to you. Okay? Especially we also practice mantras ourselves. This is why when I teach you those mantras, what did I tell you? I said, don't use them. Don't use them without permission. Okay? So this guy here, this Sramana here, practices mantras, Hinayana mantras, and so he's pretty good. He's able to have some skills. He develops some skills. It's typical. You recite them long enough, you have some skills. It's a repetition game. The more you recite, naturally, the skill will develop. Okay? And this is so typical of people who are learning the wrong way. Their practice is based on greed, right? You recite mantras because you want to be able to use them. So what happens as you go along, you develop this, you're able to use mantras, some responses, as the Chinese put it. Then you spend a lot of time using the mantras. Okay, and every time you use a mantra, what happens? You reduce blessings. You know that? You use your mantra, you reduce blessings. You use up your blessings, and you piss off a lot of people at the same time. And you're making enemies and reducing blessings. So that's why the kind of training they have is they have a lot more followers for that reason, because people say, what's the point in me learning these mantras? If I can't use them, what's the point? Okay? Whereas in our side, we say, learn mantras is in order to help you develop samadhi and your wisdom. That's the main purpose, not to use it, because you don't have enough wisdom to use mantras. Right here, the example, this person using a mantra, who asked him? Who allowed him? Who authorized him to use a mantra to put out someone else's fire? What kind of monk is that? It's so icky. I'm so grossed out even more than last night. When I hear the story of this guy here, practicing mantras and then reciting mantras to do this and do that, it really grosses me out. It's so Hinayana. They're looking for results. You notice that? Hey, boys and girls, trying to impress. Have so many desires. I want to, learn this mantra so that I can, use it to get what I want. So learning mantras makes them more greedy. And the greed gets bigger and bigger the more they use them. So it's what I call improper foundation. You can't go very far. Okay? They're harming themselves. They're doing a disservice to the mantras. They're doing a disservice to their teachers. Continue.
Niệm là没有了，没有火了。他这火一熄灭了，他家里的人呢就都空。
What do we do? Oh, go ahead.
He chanted the extinguishing fire mantra. Once he chanted this mantra, the fire offered at his house was extinguished.
Wasn't it done already?
Sorry, wrong slide. He recited till there was no more fire. Once the fire was extinguished, the members of the family were frightened, greatly shocked, and all afraid.
Jewel Mountain has a question.
Jewel Mountain asks, why do we do mantras every day? Do we create blessings while spending blessings? Aren't we purifying our way place by doing mantras in the morning and the evening?
Good question. If you recite mantras as part of the practice from a great assembly, among others, okay, then it's called cultivation. Okay, you're getting trained, you're getting drills, you're getting practices to use the mantras. So that's a good form of practice. But when you use mantras, to apply mantras to a specific situation to get what you want, that's is not advisable because you don't have real wisdom yet to use mantras. Okay? Right here is the example is of this Sramana who came to someone else's house instead of staying out in the cold. He came to ask for a favor from the owner. Granted, the owner says, I don't like you. Okay? To spite you, I let you stay outside. But I let you stay inside my property. That's still a gift. He's still doing the Sramana a favor. So far, so good. Regardless, the Sramana owes the owner, a debt of being able to have a shelter inside the house, so that he's not robbed, or he has a shelter if the rain comes, and so forth. Maybe use a restroom, use the owner's tree. Instead of having to go around, look for a tree. And what does he do? He owes to this owner a debt of gratitude. And then he recites the mantra so that the fire is extinguished. And what does it do? Instead of being grateful and showing gratitude, he caused them to be frightened, to be afflicted. You see the difference between this Sramana's training and yours, and ours? Continue.
舞起来，大惊，都害怕，一起就出来了，向这个沙门来叩头啊，顶礼，向他求忏悔。
Then they came out to bow to the Sramana, bowed, prostrated, and plead for repentance.
那么就请这个沙门呢，到屋里边呢，到房里边呢去，到那个里边去住去了。他们知道是自己的不对。
Then they invited this Sramana inside of his house, to stay inside. They knew they were wrong.
You see, the problem we had is it's so icky. So he showed off his prowess, so they repented. So he's right and they're wrong. It's what I call, never mind about purity, but what I call missed opportunities. It will happen to you, and if you really are able to recite the mantra to extinguish a fire, I'd be so impressed myself, okay? It's a cool skill, okay? Would be cool to be able to do that. But you miss on the chance. What are you missing? What did this guy miss? He failed the test. What test? When someone despises you and slights you, what do? You recite mantras to beat them up? Then you fail the test. He should be walking out of there instead of going inside the house. I would put my tail between my legs and walk out of there and say, I'm so sorry. I failed my test again. I failed my Shifu's again, my Shifu's teachings again. My Shifu tells me to look inside. What do? I look outside at your faults and publish it to the world that you are so bad. When people mistreat us, when people slight us, and people are unkind to us, it's a test. Remember that. It's a test to see what you're going to do. Are you going to get afflicted and retaliate or not? If you retaliate because you're afflicted, you fail the test. You won't be taught anymore until you pass the test. Continue.
完了，好，那把这，那么呢，家里的人呢，向这个沙门来顶礼忏悔，请这个沙门呢到他房子里边去住。
Then the members of his family bowed and repented to the Sramana and invited him to stay inside the house.
这个沙门呢，就又念了一个咒， 念一个什么咒呢？就念一个生火的咒。
This Sramana then chanted another mantra. What mantra? He chanted the making fire mantra.
先念一个灭火的咒，这回念一个生火的咒。他那火已经没有了，这回自己又生出来了。
He first chanted the extinguishing fire mantra. Then he chanted the making fire mantra. The fire was already gone. Now it came out by itself again.
这个是火外道，他的家里全家一看，这太神妙了。
The fire-worshipping externalists' whole family saw this. Oh, this is so magical and wonderful.
虽然说是火这么多年，也没有这种神通。这太妙了。
Although we served the fire for all these years, we never had such spiritual penetration. This is so wonderful.
所以这个维奇南一看他这种的神通比他们这个神通大了，于是乎就相信呢这个沙门。
So, once Wei Qinan saw that, he saw his such spiritual penetration was bigger than their spiritual penetration. He believed in this Sramana.
相信这个沙门呢，就要跟着这个沙门来出家修道了。要跟着沙门出家修道。
He believed in this Sramana and wanted to live the home life and cultivate the way with this Sramana, to follow this Sramana, to live the home life and cultivate the way.
叫他们到这边有地方来做。他这个父亲母亲一看这个沙门的确是有点神通。
This is Master YongHua talk to his disciple. There's space here. Come sit here. Then the story again. Once his father and mother saw this Sramana indeed had some spiritual penetration.
所以也就准许他这个小孩子跟他出家，跟他出家就修道。
They allowed this child to live the home life with him. He left the home life with him and then cultivated the way.
修道专门呢就习这个读诵经典，学这个读诵的法师。
He cultivated the way, specifically practiced reciting the sutras. He was a Dharma master who studied recitation.
他一天呢就可以读诵2万言或者3万言。那么很聪明。
He could recite 20,000 to 30,000 sentences a day. He was very smart.
以后，在这个东吴啊，这黄武元年的时候，也就到这个吴国来了，就是今天讲那个孙权呢，黄武元年的时候来。
Later, in East Wu, 222, he arrived in Wu. It was the time of Sun Quan that we are talking about today, in 222.
来到中国，他学中文呢，学得很慢。怎么样学也学不太好。
He came to China and learned Chinese very slowly. No matter what, he couldn't learn it well.
他还有一个一同来的一个同参，这个同参呢叫律言，律就是戒律的律，言就是这个两个火字那个言。
He had a co-cultivator who came with him together. This co-cultivator was named 律言。
两个人学中文都学得不太好，以后但是也就翻译经典，硬翻译经典。怎么翻译呢？就查字典。
Both of them didn't learn Chinese well, but later they also translated sutras. They bit the bullet to translate sutras. How did they translate?
查字典来翻译经典，查一个字翻译一个字，查。
They just looked up the dictionary to translate sutras, looked up one character to translate one character.
一个字翻译一个字，那翻译的这个经典呢，虽然勉强翻译出来了，但是读起来都很不顺利，很不顺口的。
Looked up one character to translate one character. They barely translated these sutras, but they read awkward, very awkward.
这么样子就把这个佛法翻译了很多小小的经典，但是翻的都很古朴的。
Like this, translated many small sutras for the Buddha Dharma, but they were translated with primitive simplicity.
这个说起来听着知道这不是懂得中文的人翻译的。
When read or heard, people would know they were translated by someone who don't understand Chinese.
可是这些个经典以后经过有一个时期那个变烂，把这个经典就都给毁坏了，没有流通出来。
But these sutras later experienced a period of chaos, and these sutras were destroyed. They were not circulated.
毁坏了，就是没有流通，这都没有印成书就都没有了， 就那写的稿子，然后没有印呢，就没有了。
Destroyed and not circulated. They were not printed as books, and they were gone. The written drafts were not printed and were gone.
虽然没有了，但是这两位法师这功德也是很大的，
Although they were gone, these two Dharma masters had huge merits and virtues.
他们是个外道啊，然后这个皈依三宝。在当时啊，这个中国也没有翻译过来的经典。
They were externalists, took refuge with the Triple Jewel. At that time, even in China, we didn't have translated sutras, didn't have.
在那个时候啊，经过很困难的翻译经典，所以也比你们现在还困难。
At that time, they experienced much difficulties in translating the sutras, so much more difficult than you.
现在这个比那时候是容易了，因为有科学进步的时代，是比较快一点。
Now it's easier than that time because we are in the era of advanced science. We are relatively faster.
这是这个维奇南，他虽然他中文不好，但是他敢翻译啊。这是很值得人呢来纪念他这种勇气。
Although Wei Qinan's Chinese was not good, but he dared to translate. This was worthy for people to commemorate his courage.
Okay, let's stop here. Any questions or comments? Yes, Green.
Thank you, Master. Not about what we just read, but I wanted to ask, when it comes to lay people using their blessings with mantras, if we play a mantra recording in our home, is that us using our blessings as well?
No, you play the mantras at home, you're practicing the mantra, so you're generating blessings. You just practice without any specific applications, and then you're generating blessings.
And then the follow-up question is, if we're playing the mantras to help with like a disturbance in our home, you know, to calm the energy in our home of something that we feel is not good, is that effective? Is that something that we are okay to do?
It helps. Usually it helps, but you have to be careful because the mantras have different uses, have different effectiveness, and depending who recites it as well. The same mantra recited by this Wei Qinan's master, Hinayana master versus a Mahayana master would be vastly different in responses, in effectiveness. Okay, that's why it's a lot of variables that we don't know. We can't really comment on it, but people do play mantras in their home and their offices. It seems to help. It seems to help a lot. But be careful. Do the mantras are not harmful to those yin beings. Okay. For example, avoid playing the Sramana mantra because that's harmful to them. But the great compassion mantra is helpful, and so is medicine master mantra, and so forth. Okay. Overall, playing something that along like reciting Amitabha Buddha's name is also very universally beneficial for everyone. Okay. There's I think this is the fourth, something like that, the fourth patriarch of Pure Land School Buddhism. He's a very, very low-key patriarch. No one knew about him. He just recited the Buddha's name. And then in his area, and one day there's severe drought in the region for a long, long time. And people were suffering. So it was brought to his attention. So what did he do? He left his house, or the place where he was cultivating, and went around and hit that bell thing. Okay, it's not quite a bell, but that thing, symbols. Okay, and he went around the area, around the village, and recited Amitabha Buddha's name loudly while hitting that, and the rain came. It's because of his virtues. Okay, so the person who recites is very, very important. Okay, so because he could have recited a mantra to make the rain come and order the dragons to do things, but no, he recited the Buddha's name, and he's so powerful that it impressed the bad elements, and he invoked a response. All right, anything else? Anyone else? All right, then we stop here tonight. Thank you.